Last time in Absolute Superman, America's heartland found itself turned into a pressure cooker where faith, fear and firepower collided. Smallville became the stage for a siege at the hands of the Lazarus Corporation and its villainous CEO, Ra's al Ghul. What began as a corporate crackdown escalated into a full-blown invasion as Lazarus tightened its fist around the town, cutting the people off from the world. And the reason for this conflict was Superman. When he arrived seeking refuge just a few years ago, he quickly caught the attention of Lazarus. When they descended on the Kent family farm, Superman fled, becoming a citizen of the world, popping up wherever and whenever he was needed. This Kal-El grew up on Krypton and saw the decimation firsthand. He is young, raw and still learning the shape of hope, alongside his living suit Sol, who is equal parts mentor, protector and sibling. After escaping Lazarus's clutches and narrowly avoiding their brainwashing, he returned to Smallville, hoping to rediscover himself. However, he inadvertently brought down the fury of Lazarus upon the whole town. He tried to shield Smallville, ordering Sol to prioritize the people, and Sol transformed into a fortress buried in the earth. But in the Absolute Universe, nothing stays sacred. Brainiac wormed his way into Sol's systems, corrupting the very symbol the townsfolk had wrapped their trust around. In a single stroke, the fortress essentially collapsed, turning from a warm Kryptonian red to a cold, jagged purple. Meanwhile, the Al Ghuls and their allies sharpened their tools. Talia augmented the Peacemakers using Darkseid's father box, and Ra's, ever the poet of apocalypse, arrived wielding a Kryptonite blade, ready to humble Superman and bring him under his control. Together with Brainiac's digital corruption, the Lazarus war machine formed a trinity of domination: greed, circuitry, and zeal. Their message was simple: the world belongs to those ruthless enough to remake it. But Superman's message remained stubbornly different: the world belongs to those brave enough to care for it. And that's where we pick up. Smallville stands on the knife edge between ruin and rebirth. Sol is compromised, the people are cornered, and the Al Ghuls march with the confidence of conquerors. So the first thing to point out about this issue is that it came out 2 weeks later than planned, no doubt because of the increased page count, and this was needed to flesh out the battle, and there's a lot of action here. Ra's is a very experienced swordsman given his unnaturally long lifespan, and he makes fairly short work of Superman. He really drags his suffering out. He stabs him through the back, impales his hand, and slices his face against the radioactive blade. But Superman remains defiant, spitting blood in his face. He also hallucinates being back on Krypton with his parents and Krypto, who tell him it's time to reunite, but even in his weakened state he refuses to give in. Ra's discloses that in his lifetime he has sired over 90 sons, but none of them have lived up to his expectations, and he chose to kill them rather than suffer the disappointment, which kind of reminds me of the Titans from Greek mythology, specifically Cronus, what with how Ra's refers to himself as a god and loving father. Cronus was the father of the Greek pantheon of gods, and ate his children because he feared they'd overthrow him one day. So I suppose in this case, Ra's is an inverted Cronus. He kills his children because they won't overthrow him or live up to his expectations. I suppose that's appropriate for a universe created by Darkseid, who had sacrificed his own son, let's not forget. While Superman is down, he's not exactly out. Similarly, Sol demonstrates its own willingness to fight. Yes, Brainiac has irreparably corrupted it, but the link goes two ways. Now, Sol knows everything about Brainiac, including his humble origins as a corpse disposer. Realizing that there is no way for it to break free, and refusing to be turned into a weapon to harm Superman, Sol instead opts to erase itself, which really motivates Superman to fight back. Ra's is delighted to see this spark of energy though, and he encourages Superman to give in to his rage and become Kal-El Ghul. And I don't know why that name really tickles me, it's just got such a good ring to it. But Superman is less impressed with the offer and instead decimates Ra's with his heat vision. Now, it's important to note that he doesn't kill him, if anything it just seems to have burnt his suit off, but it's a welcome act of aggression. Remember that Ra's had aimed to get Superman to give in to his violent urges and become a killer, or as he puts it, the personification of his wrath. In the aftermath, the Peacemakers pilot grabs Superman thinking he's done a good deed, but he clearly wasn't paying attention. First of all, this prompts the onlooking residents of Smallville to raise their weapons, bows and arrows, hunting rifles and the likes. They won't do much damage with them, but it's more of a gesture than anything else. Secondly, Ra's al Ghul is furious that one of his underlings thought it was a good idea to lay his hands on his son. Ra's slices the mech apart and comes close to killing the pilot, but Superman dives between them, once again putting his life on the line to save an enemy. This is the ultimate act of self-sacrifice. It's one thing to put your own life on the line to save someone you care about, but it's an entirely separate and completely selfless thing to protect someone you don't like. Ra's calls it weakness, but really it is true strength. Similarly, when Russ says he's had enough and orders his Peacemakers to kill everyone so that they can leave, Superman offers to submit and become Kal-El Ghul, so long as he lets the people of Smallville go. But Russ has no intention of doing that. He doesn't care about the people. Even his own men, they're all completely disposable to him. Less than disposable, an annoyance that he can prove his might by stomping, or getting Superman to do it. When Superman tears the S-shield from his chest, it's presented as if he's willing to discard his heritage, like he's giving in, but really what he's doing is affirming everything he stands for. He recounts how it was meant to be a symbol of shame, to mark them as less than the elites in the Science Council, but it's something he's deeply proud of, and he takes Sol's remains and the Sunstone from his symbol and turns them into a sword to battle Russ with. There's some delightful imagery here, with Russ's Kryptonite sword representing everything that Krypton became: the squabbling, the lies, the deception, the rot that ultimately led to its destruction. It is pure poison. Superman's Sunstone sword, meanwhile, represents everything Krypton once was: community, ingenuity, compassion, and the clash between the two makes the book's argument unmistakable. I don't think it's unreasonable to describe Ra's al Ghul and the Lazarus Corporation as fascists. There's more to it than that. Traditional fascism centers on the state, whereas Lazarus operates without borders, but the DNA is the same. Militarized authoritarianism, a mythologized past, and a deification of a single unquestionable leader. There are those that matter, very few of them, and those that do not matter, the many. Even Russ's physical design feeds into this. Broad shoulders, exaggerated musculature, the heavy beard and flowing hair, its masculinity pushed to the point of caricature. Add in the massive radioactive sword that just screams, "Look at me, aren't I big and strong?" And what you get is performative strength, as if he's trying to convince himself that he's strong. It's power that has to be constantly displayed and constantly proven because it's terrified of appearing weak. In many ways, this is similar to the Science Council on Krypton, destroying the planet with no concern for the lives of the people. In fact, they're both quite happy to sacrifice individuals to keep their systems going. So, yes, Russ is a better swordsman, but he can't fly, he can't shoot lasers out of his eyes, he's not super strong, and his blade is weak. When the blades clash, the Kryptonite sword shatters. The Kryptonite blade breaking on impact is an ideological beat. Fascism always believes it is facing weakness. It mistakes mercy for softness, restraint for fragility. Russ assumes that Superman's compassion makes him brittle. Instead, it reveals that cruelty is the unstable element. And Superman doesn't win because he's stronger, although he totally is. He wins because his values are load-bearing. And that's the triumph of this clash. Fascism demands purity, hierarchy, and obedience. Compassion demands participation. One rules by subtraction, the other by accumulation. When they collide, subtraction inevitably runs out of material. So the sword shatters not because Kryptonite is weak, although it totally is, but because a worldview built on fear cannot survive contact with one built on shared responsibility. It's Russ's fight to impose order from above versus Superman's fight to protect the messy, stubborn miracle of people choosing each other. And it was there for all to see. When Russ orders the Peacemakers to open fire on the farmers of Smallville, they refuse. The pilot of the Peacemak, who Superman had saved, says he's from Oklahoma, which is a rural state known for its farming. He did not sign up to shoot American farmers, and none of them did. So when the sword shatters and his forces refuse to back him up, Russ drops to his knees and asks Superman to give him what he deserves and to become Kal-El Ghul. Now, Russ imagined that Superman was going to kill him, but that is not who he is. Instead, he binds him in the Sunstone and takes him to Pakistan, where he will stand trial for the murder of those protesters. And this was all it took to break the hold the Lazarus Corporation had on the world. Everyone turns on them. Their assets are frozen. Governments launch investigations of their own. Their stranglehold on the world is broken, like the Kryptonite sword. And all it took was for one person to stand up to them to say, "No, this isn't right," and to stand their ground. For as much as Superman saves the day and gains so much, the issue ends with a bittersweet message that Superman cannot save everyone. There is the tragedy of Martha Kent's death. Now, remember that in the Absolute Universe, Superman only spent a few weeks with the Kents as a teenager before he had to go on the run, but he still left a strong impression on Martha. Even when suffering from dementia, she knew that one day Kal-El would return. She was rarely lucid enough to recognize him, but in her calmer moments, she made a gift for him. a new costume to replace what he had lost. It's a sad ending, but I feel it punctuates the message of the issue. Evil fails when people stop carrying it. Lazarus lost because one by one, people refused to keep the machine running. The Peacemakers wouldn't fire, a town wouldn't kneel, and Superman wouldn't comply. Fascism thrives on obedience, on the comforting lie that following orders absolves you of responsibility. This story rejects that outright. Sometimes defiance isn't loud. Sometimes it isn't violent. Sometimes it's as simple as just saying no and meaning it. Because when good people do nothing, cruelty feels inevitable. But when even one person refuses to play their part, the sword shatters, the spell breaks, and the world remembers that it doesn't belong to gods, tyrants, or corporations. It belongs to the people who choose each other anyway. Absolute Superman 14 is available now from all good comic shops. If you're opposed to the idea of cluttering up your home with comic books, then you can get this comic digitally from places like Amazon as well as Neon Ichiban, a new digital comic retailer from the founders of Comixology. Personally, I prefer physical comics, but I do love the convenience of having thousands of comics accessible from my phone, but you do what works best for you. Next time, I'll be back very soon with a video talking about the triumphant return of Agent John Jones in Absolute Martian Manhunter number 7. Next week, DC seems to be taking the week off for a good long rest, and I can't say that I blame them. It's been a bumper year for them. If I have the time, I may put together a short video looking at Bruce Timm's new horror art book. No promises though. But I will definitely be back in the first week of January with 4 more videos. I know, 4 videos. What are DC thinking? First, we have the Absolute Arkham special, which promises to lift the veil on the secretive facility that's making monsters off the coast of Gotham. Then I'll be talking about Absolute Superman 15, which promises to kick off a new era for the Man of Steel after he made himself known to the world. Following that, I'll be talking about Absolute Green Lantern number 10, where Joe Mullen comes face to face with the villainous Goldface. And finally, as if that wasn't enough, I'll be talking about Batman number 5, where Bruce Wayne and Dr. Zeller's night out gets interrupted by a new villain, Lady Deathman. Hope to see you then.